What's up, basement dwellers? It's Chris the Dace Man Dace, and we're bringing you another Podern nerd this week. I know what you're thinking. We've been hearing a lot from you. I can't believe it. So to spice it up, I brought back Cheever again.
Woo! And I'm not high.
And this time on Podern Nerd, we're going to do something weird. Whereas like normally we follow a show episode by episode, or we follow a movie, or we take a character and run through the character. We wanted to look at a specific episode in Rick and Morty, Season 7, Episode 5, called Unrickmorten. They have some weird fucking titles. But this was an important episode in the Rick and Morty lore that I felt needed to be discussed. Granted, Rick and Morty started way before we started Podern Nerd, so we're just really focusing on this one episode today because it was a culmination of 7 seasons and one major story arc. Rick finds Rick Prime, and they have their final confrontation. So, holy shit, Cheever, what are your initial thoughts on Episode 5 to Season 7 of the name that I'm not going to say again?
We got a backstory to Evil Morty.
We did.
Oh my god, that answers a lot of fan theories. That was just something I was never expecting after that one season finale. I think it was Season 5?
I think so.
Where he blows up the Citadel, he jumps into the Nether, and it's just like, all right, we're never going to see him again. Like, sometimes you don't catch the bad guy. And then just see how he transforms, and we finally get the story. That was something. They started with a bang. They knew what they were doing for this episode.
And if I'm not mistaken, Evil Morty is Morty Prime. Is he not?
No.
Did I pick up on that wrong then?
Yes.
I could have sworn that Rick Prime made a comment after Evil Morty beat the shit out of him that he kept calling him grandson.
I think Rick Prime never had a grandson, which is why he was always so awkward around everyone in Morty. Like, that was the true self narcissist, in a sense. So Evil Morty was never Morty Prime. It was just the smartest Mortys of the Mortys, and that just happened to take over the Citadel.
Interesting. So apparently Evil Morty, when he went through that Nexus, he decided to just kind of like retire, more or less. Yeah. So it shows the Evil Morty's backstory. While his Rick was drunk, Evil Morty altered him to be a servant, leading him into actions throughout the series, which kind of shows you the progression of what Evil Morty was up to and how he got to the Citadel, broke the Citadel down, and then went off into the sunset. But his retirement was interrupted by portals opening, caused by Rick and Morty searching for Rick Prime.
Yep.
It then draws Evil Morty out of retirement to confront Rick and Morty. And that sets them on their journey to go get Rick Prime, because at least from Evil Morty's point of view of, all right, I'll help you solve this, and then you can leave me the fuck alone. So the interesting dynamic in this episode that I want to talk about is so Rick Prime is the Prime Rick, more or less. Is Evil Morty smarter than all the Ricks out there? Especially like what we'll call our Rick, which you can't call Rick Prime, but our Rick.
Yeah. I would argue that he is. I would say he's on the same level. I mean, I think there'll be certain gaps in the knowledge.
So the concerning thing is Evil Morty shows up to our Rick and Morty, right? Mm-hmm. And helps get to Rick Prime. So Rick and Morty weren't able to find him successfully. And Morty basically alters the algorithm or whatever the hell Rick's working on to get to Rick Prime. So right there, he outsmarts Rick a little. Then we get into the final confrontation where Evil Morty basically wins. It's because fucking our Rick is dead, essentially.
Yeah.
Who gets revived by Evil Morty. Our Morty is he's a typical Morty. And Evil Morty basically interrogates, steals what he needs from Prime Rick, and leaves him there for our Rick to deal with. So I do think Evil Morty is the ultimate, and he can be the ultimate villain of this series. Even though he makes the comment to Rick that do not come after me, it won't end well for you. Do you think we're leading to a Rick and Morty versus Evil Morty showdown? Jumping the gun here, but okay. So you think Evil Morty's done?
I think Evil Morty, it's set in a way where you can use him for a plot device, right? They used Evil Morty to give Rick an equal to find Rick Prime.
Okay.
Because the writers, in a sense, they wrote themselves in a corner of, we're looking for Rick Prime. Rick can't find him. Our Rick can't find him. So there needs to be someone or something in the universe or multiverse that will inspire or get them closer. Which it did, which got them to the Black Death Cube.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now they can call back on a person if they write themselves in a corner to go, okay, tap this person in, they'll get us through this writer's block.
Which makes sense. So, because to your point, it's our Rick and Morty hit a wall. They weren't going to get any further, and then they just kept doing side missions. Mm-hmm. So to wrap up this overall story arc that's been running through all 7 seasons, and that's kind of why we're doing this Podern Nerd on it, is because this is basically what to me would be a series finale if you cared enough about your show being more than just a sitcom.
This may have been Justin's last episode as a writer.
Yeah, good. That's good. Good point.
That was the other thing that ran through my mind when the credits ran.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, because it really was the culmination of what the 7 seasons were like. At least the point of Rick was going to. Rick is the way he is because he lost his wife to Rick Prime, and most of his actions are set in motion because of those events. And here you are now, where it's solved. And again, part of the reason we're doing this episode of Podern Nerd is because where the fuck do you go from here? Yeah. To kind of give you the point of where we are, Rick, Evil Morty, Rick, and our Morty beat Rick Prime. And as part of Evil Morty's plan, he restrains Rick Prime and leaves him to our Rick's will. And our Rick beats the shit out of him until he's dead.
But we never see the death.
True.
I'm going to circle back to that. You assume the death happened.
They also make a joke about it, too. He's like, I don't think that amount of blood is not dead blood. Yeah. When Evil Morty said something about it. But it kind of breaks our Rick, per se. Because after he beats the shit out of him, Evil Morty makes the comment of it don't feel like you thought you're going to feel, did you? And he's broken. He has no purpose. He has no drive. And the preview they ran after the episode shows that the next episode, Rick Fending Your Mort, whatever that's called, he has no motivation to do anything at this point. So where do you think we go from here? Because if this was his driving factor, he has accomplished that goal. What is the point of Rick? It's the ultimate question. Where does our Rick go from here?
Well, there would have to be, on a writing standpoint, you need a catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
You need something to do that driving force. And I think that driving force would probably be something happens to Beth or Jerry or Mr. Poopy Butthole.
I don't know if Mr. Poopy Butthole is going to be the driving factor, but for 66 episodes, it was avenging his wife and taking out Rick Prime. And starting episode 67, he doesn't have that drive anymore. And it showed in the preview that he just seems to be laying in the garage drinking as Morty's trying to get him to do adventures, and Cat tries to cash in on his Froyo coupon thing he's got going of get these 12 adventures of Rick, you get one free type thing. I do think you're right though with maybe Beth. I think Beth is, or Morty would make sense, but then the show wouldn't be Rick and Morty. But Beth makes a lot of sense as a driving factor. I thought it was interesting that Evil Morty made a comment to Rick of like, why would I kill you? Do you think I want to deal with a bunch of raging, avenging Summers? Because apparently Summer is feared. Because she's a loose cannon.
It's the butterfly effect. You take out, or not necessarily butterfly effect. It's the domino effect. You take out the top apex predator that hunts. There's going to be someone else that pops right up, and that person or thing might not be as nice as what you just took down.
Yeah, which makes sense. Hell, we talked about it through our Loki run. He Who Remains was that kind of driving force. I would go through the list of episode names that are left, but the episode names of these episodes never give you any indication of what the hell's going on. It actually looks like the rest of them are just kind of playing off of movie titles, like Wet Kuwait Amortian Summer, which is Wet American Summer, Rise of the Numericons, the movie, Mort Ragnarok, or Mort Ragnarok, and Fear No Mort are the final episodes after Rick Fending Your Mort, which is this Sunday's episode coming up.
I think no, you could possibly. What's next week's episode called?
Rick Fending Your Mort, which based on the preview makes no fucking sense to me because Rick is just out of it, and Morty's the one trying to motivate Rick.
So episode 4 was called "That's a Morty."
Yes, which was very
Italian pasta based off of suicide.
Yes.
Then
which
this episode was
after you see the episode, the title makes sense.
Yeah. Unmortification.
Unmortification.
So
I don't get how that relates to the episode.
Well, if you look at the prefix, means no, like no more Morty.
You're unmortying Rick?
Yeah. Which would make sense. Because you use Morty, evil Morty, and Rick is not Rick at the end. So not Morty undoing Rick.
It makes sense because I'm looking at some of these other episodes. Air Force One makes sense because the therapist gets involved in the adventure with Rick and the president. The Jarek Trap.
She's an Asian, right?
Yeah. Played by Sandra Bullock, or not Sandra Bullock, Susan Sarandon. The Jarek Trap is a play on the Parent Trap, which is kind of what happened between Rick and Jerry. And how Poopy got his poop back, that makes sense because Poopy Butthole is in depression, and they basically get him to bounce back.
And it's a play on a movie title as well.
What's the Unmortifican play on the movie title? Like, I get most of them. Air Force One is Air Force One. The Jarek Trap is a play on the Parent Trap. That's Amore. I'm sure there's a fucking movie out there called That's Amore.
Like a 1950s movie.
Yeah, most likely. The Unmortifican, is that play on Unbreakable?
It could be. So what's next week's episode called? Because I'm on Hulu. I don't see what's next.
Rick Fending Your Mort.
So is it Rick and Morty, like Rick trying to protect Morty?
There's no I'm on their Wikipedia. There's no description of what it's going to be. The preview that popped up on after watching the episode is Morty comes into the garage trying to go on an adventure with Rick, and Rick is just like, nah, I'm not doing anything.
Or Rick and Morty just have a battle against like their identities? We'll find out next week.
I'm assuming they're just going to go back into weekly adventures at this point, and there'll be like a brief kickstarting of Rick to get him back into doing adventures. But he does them half-assed and reluctantly.
So more season 1?
That's what I'm guessing. And as they do at most of the end of their seasons, they drop some kind of fucking tearjerker finale on you.
Yeah.
That would set up maybe an overarching another 6 seasons. I don't know. It just seems weird. I did think we had to talk about this because it was such a pivotal moment in this show that they've just took away his main motivation. Again, 66 episodes across 7 seasons, across 80 years, because it takes him forever to do a season, to end that arc of Rick defeating his nemesis. Like, maybe he goes forward and he tries to bring back his wife. Like, reverse engineer the Omega device that evil Morty took.
Yeah. I mean, only time will tell.
I got the last question I got for this before we end up our Podern nerd. Morbius. Slow Mobius. They just make that character up in this episode because I don't remember him.
I don't remember him either.
Okay.
Which, yeah, it was they used him as the punching bag of why did he slow his own death down?
That, and Rick calls him Uncle Mobius. So, like, they gave that character such a background in 2 sentences of dialogue.
That's what those writers know what to do, though. They know how to make something absurd matter in seconds
and make you question of, like, did I miss this?
Yep.
Because, I mean, here we are questioning, did I miss this? And then have a post-credit scene of Slow Mobius' wife going through essentially the same fucking thing Rick went through. But instead of pursuing the person who got rid of Slow Mobius, she just eventually meets an alien who lost his wife, and they settle down. So it's what Rick could have done, but chose not to do. So, what are your thoughts on this? Like, final thoughts on, like, the overall arc ending?
I liked it. I thought it was a conclusive ending. Something like you can put this down at this point and not go back to and still be happy.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to shit on it. The only difference I would say about this is I would say every episode, give or take a few, and this is one of them, I'm laughing at the entire time because it's joke after joke after joke after joke. This actually had moments where I was just kind of sitting there with my mouth open like, what?
This isn't Goosebumps.
This isn't a comedy. This is kind of sad. And they do that very well. Like, that's one thing I loved about Scrubs, is you could sit there and have punchline, gut punch. And they did this with this episode of, like, okay, let's do some jokes. Let's do some hat tips to, like, different variants of Rick, like the Indiana Jones Rick, friendly Rick, and then, like, have this ultimate fight scene that looked like it was in a video game with the giant Diane. Was it Debbie? Is his wife Debbie or Diane? Whatever. His giant wife robots kind of, like, shooting things out in drones. Like, it was an epic fucking battle. Not too much comedy. And still love this episode as much as, like, the last episode where it was joke after joke after joke after joke. And I think that's beautiful writing on Dan Harmon's part and that team to do that to you. That's why I love watching Bill Lawrence projects. Like I said, Scrubs. It's punchline, gut punch. And it's just beautifully done. And that's what it's so refreshing to talk about a TV show I don't fucking hate. After, like, I don't hate them, but, like, just sit there and talk about a TV show like this was beautiful and not be upset of where the future is going to take us.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, Marvel,
Goosebumps.
Maybe if I get to the end of it, maybe you seem to be setting me up for failure.
I'm trying to set the bar low for that. Like, I need to go in, like, whatever happens, happens. Be happy.
I appreciate that. Well, that's going to do it for us on Podern. We got a lot of episodes coming up. We'll be talking about Invincible Season 2 Part A, which is the first 4 episodes dropping in November, and then come back and give you the Part B whenever the Amazon decides to drop them. We'll be talking about Goosebumps Season 1 recap. Might be us two again. Monarch, the MonsterVerse TV show coming out in Apple Plus, kicks off November 9th or 17th. So we'll probably be doing an episodic thing there. And then eventually we'll be handing it off to Jarrett and Trish to talk about Percy Jackson. So a lot of Podern Nerd coming your way from Basement Protocol. I've been Chris the Dace Man Dace. He's been Cheever.
Woo!
And remember, Basement Dollars, stick to the protocol. We'll see you next time on Podern Nerd.
Rick and Morty.